Good evening, everyone. This is a meeting of the Acton Warrant and Finance Committee, and the date is 16 March 2018. We are here today to go over the final version of the warrant from the Acton School Board. I've been notified by the administrator of the town that the Board of Selectmen will go ahead without any other changes and sign the warrant for the treasurer. And so it leaves it now just to us to make some comments and make some recommendations that will go on the ballot. If I could, we're going to go over, I think Mr. Gore has an opening that he wants to start with. And so without any opposition from anybody else on the committee, I will recognize Mr. Gore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, by the way, excuse me, this is a public meeting. We have absolutely nothing against people coming or up here. There's no podium, unfortunately, but you can stand and the cameraman will get your picture or whatever. But if you have an issue, obviously we're not a personal type of any attack or praise, but just issues. If you have issues, we certainly welcome them and encourage your participation in the meeting. It may not be until after someone has spoken that we'll ask for comments. We won't interrupt whoever is speaking, but everyone will be heard, and if they wish to make comments, we will certainly be pleased that they do. Go ahead.
A point of order, Mr. Chairman. I think it's appropriate to appoint your alternate as a serving voting member of the committee tonight.
Both of them. Yes. We have two, no, just one, right? We have two alternates this evening.
Right.
So both of them will be available.
The other thing is, I would think it's a good thing if we're going to have people come up and comment. I just soon have to sit down and be at least comfortable and have a discussion as opposed to standing up and, but whatever. Okay, I'll leave it at that.
Whatever.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I wish to formally object to this meeting for failure to provide proper notice, thus opening the way for any voters wishing to participate in this process to nullify any action taken at this meeting. As of 3/13/2018, no public notice that I am aware of for any Warrant and Finance meeting after 3/8 or March 8th had been posted on the town website, and I have a screenshot on that date. As of 3/15/2018, it is noted that the meeting has been posted on the town website. Failure of committees in this process to meet self-imposed schedules does not constitute an emergency, and we do have until June 23rd to complete this work. The selectmen do not have the authority to demand compliance with any schedule unless granted by the town meeting. That is, any schedule affecting this committee. I'm going to leave it at that and continue.
Okay, I have a question though, from a committee point of view. Why is the 23rd of June such a sacrosanct date?
Because we have to provide 7 days notice for the town meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, moving on to item 2. This has to do with transparency. Item number 1 leads to a few comments on transparency. We have discussed this or raised questions about it before, but let's go on. Transparency is achieved by using processes and terminology that are, to use school department counsel's terms, not without doubt. And my first not there is one I inserted. You will find the terminology not without doubt in counsel's letter, at least twice. That was enough. Okay, let me go back and read that again so I don't stop there. Not without doubt as to meaning or intent. More simply expressed, transparency is achieved by using processes and terminology about which there is no doubt about meaning and intent in the conduct of public business. Transparency is performing the necessary acts of governing in a manner that is predictable and without doubt within the confines of statute and common law as understood by the municipal legislative body. If/when new terms or processes are introduced into the conduct of business, it is incumbent upon the officers and officials and/or members of the legislative body using the new terms or processes to seek common understanding of the meaning and intent. The effort to achieve that common understanding is required by statute. Enough said about that. To refine our understanding of the term capital improvement versus capital maintenance, which we discussed last time, the school department chair noted in the March 6th meeting that in a definition she read, capital improvement admits capital expenditures which extend the life of capital. Okay, let's clarify it. It is true that a portion of capital maintenance expenses may be categorized as capital improvement in circumstances where the life expectancy of the repair or replacement has a life expectancy longer than that of the original. And I'll give you an example of that. If the water pumps, for instance, that you took out of the well had been installed and they had a 10 or 15-year guarantee on them, and the new ones you put in had a 25-year guarantee on them, that is what we mean by extending the life. You put in a more sophisticated or better quality product. That portion of that cost differential is a capital improvement. The rest of it is maintenance. Maintenance, again, is to maintain. Improvement is to improve the utility, life, whatever of the building.
I have a question
Yes,
from the
go ahead.
committee. Does this mean that the explanation that was given at our meeting was a correct one?
I think the chairman, yes, but it wasn't complete in its understanding.
Okay, so that as an issue is off the board, basically, is what you're telling me? I'm asking.
I think it's a topic for discussion in the future as we move forward.
But there was nothing incorrect in what was said at the meeting that we had with the school board?
No, I think there was nothing incorrect. I don't think it was complete, but it was
Okay,
nothing incorrect.
okay, please, thank you very much for
Okay.
letting me interrupt you.
Let's talk about understandings we have managed to achieve or reach over the past year. Last year, Warrant and Finance raised the issue of school committee negotiating contracts, extended contracts, which committed future town meetings. In our discussions, we have found that the school committee has not negotiated contracts, school department was not negotiating contracts, but was in fact negotiating bargaining agreements on which future contracts would be based. The school committee does not sign professional staff contracts each year until after the town meeting appropriates the funds to meet the obligation. This means that no funds are committed until after they have been appropriated. The issue, at least with respect to professional contracts, is resolved as far as I'm concerned, and I don't know about the rest of the committee, but that's my feeling. The designated reserve fuel account, identified by the four numerals 7302, is in fact the fuel cost stabilization fund, which may be carried year to year and spent for fuel for heating and transportation without authorization of the town meeting. I won't read the legal reference, it's right there before you. The account has been created and appears to have been managed in accordance with statute. The funds in the account may not be spent for any other purpose without an act of the town meeting. The account requires an appropriation by the town meeting to replenish spent funds.
So that one is okay?
Yep. That's what I'm talking about, things we've reached agreements with.
Yes, that's fine. I just wanted to reiterate that. Please, go ahead.
Yep. During the joint Warrant, Finance, and School Committee meeting on March 6th, I noted that the school department warrants did not identify the term fiscal year of the authority granted. It was I was promptly and appropriately corrected, and note that this year's warrant does identify the term of the fiscal year for which the appropriations are made. This is a positive step. Okay? So that's an improvement. finally, on this side of the page, it is read and understood that during any fiscal year, funds may not be transferred between accounts funded in Articles 2 through 12 of the warrant without town meeting approval. No funds have been transferred so long as Ms. Oliver has managed the accounts. In prior years, funds apparently were transferred according to Ms. Oliver.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right. Whatever. I'm looking forward, not looking back. Okay?
So that statement should not be there then.
That was my understanding of what Ms. Oliver said the other night at a meeting. Before she came, she said, my recollection is that she said funds had been transferred, but that's okay. We don't need, I'm not looking to go back at this point.
So that second sentence right now could be removed.
Well,
No funds have been transferred so long as Ms. Oliver has managed the accounts.
I would
period.
remove it. I'd go back and look at
Yeah,
I'd go back and look at the
I
tape.
do believe that in prior years, funds were indeed transferred
Okay.
between accounts.
But if we're not looking back,
We're not gonna look back.
We're not looking back.
Going
We're not
back.
gonna look back. I just want to get it straightened out.
The system has worked fine since Ms. Oliver has been here.
This statute is new as it applies to Acton as a result of statutory change redefining Acton as an SAD, which took place on November 1st of 2017. I won't read the statutory reference. There may have been other law on the books, I'm not sure. Well, I say that. The statute may have existed in other law prior to the 2017 substantial revision of Title 20A. And I'm unaware of any other, but I'm not all that familiar with Title 20, so, and I'm not familiar with it at all prior to this year. Okay. Moving on, 5. We have failed to reach over the past year. Warrant and Finance has expressed concern with the wording of Articles 3 through 12. The concern is that the articles use the term expend. In lieu of the more specific term appropriate, use the term expend in lieu of the term appropriate. An appropriation is understood to grant authority to selectmen within the specified fiscal year and for the defined purpose to spend municipal funds up to the limit specified in the article granting the authority. Paragraph 4.4 above relieves the Warrant and Finance Committee of the legal implications, or at least relieves me, I'm sorry, of the legal implications of the terminology, but not the lack of understanding by the voter. All right, and finally, in this part of this, Warrant, Finance, and School Committee have failed to reach common understanding of how reserve funds created by the April 28, 2015 town meeting are to be managed, carried, appropriated, refreshed, etc. Because the enabling articles 19 through 25 fail to specify any ordinance or statutory authority. Okay.
We will stop right there, and I believe that Ms. Rue has a comment on your initial statement about the meeting objection as far as the time frame. Please, Ms. Rue.
So first of all, the attachment that was sent, it does say that there's a screenshot attached, but there wasn't one in the email, so.
I'm sorry, there it is.
I do have information from our IT director that I'd like to share with you.
Okay.
Please.
Right-hand side.
See that, I'm looking for time or date.
I'm not sure there's one
Okay.
on there. I can get that for you if you want.
No, I'm good. So I have, from the control panel of the town's website, it tells when a page was last modified. So your meeting was actually posted on March 14th at 9:35 a.m. So that has been 56 hours ago, 2.8 days. Now, the law actually says that, the statute for you. It is recommended that the board give 7 days notice if advanced when possible, but this is not expressly required. The Board of Selectmen, since Nancy goes back, and probably Tom as well, if we pull some minutes, is 2 to 3 days is what their general policy has been. So this meeting has been advertised for 56 hours, 2.8 days, and is completely legal.
Jen, can you give me the legal reference for that, please? We'll get it from you
This
later. Or
one
just
has
send
about-
it to me at home.
Nope, the municipal, Officer's manual, which you probably have a copy of. That's the Freedom of
Officer
Information.
manual?
Yep.
No, I'll look in the statute, thank you.
And here's a copy from the
Thank you.
IT showing when.
Okay.
And the other dates, the other meetings on there, were all on the books prior to that date, so.
I tend to avoid the officer's manual, I go right to the law.
Yeah, well, do as you will, it's a legal meeting and you have the right to vote.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any comments about the other statements? Ms. Shane?
I just wanted to mention that in years past, if you went back through the town meeting warrants, you could probably find when it changed. When the law changed, the town used to grant the school committee permission to transfer funds. It was a warrant article every year.
By three-fifths vote.
And by a 3/5 vote. But then, when the law changed, when the accounting laws changed, that article was removed from the warrant, and since that time, the school committee has not done it. So when it was done years ago, it was a legal process granted by the town body.
The town body can still do that legal process, and that's why I raised that question last year. That agreement to allow for the transfer of funds, I actually negotiated between George Mann when he was chairman and Victor Me the first time he was chairman of the Board of Selectmen, because they were in a huge battle, and I think I mentioned this the other day to you. Bill was on the board then, right, that one time. So I'm familiar with what happened. That can still be in there, and I don't have a problem if it's in there, just so long as the public understands it.
It's not in there, and we
No,
don't.
I know it's not in there, no.
We don't want it in there, and we
Okay.
don't need it in there,
That's
because we
fine.
don't do that.
That's fine. The law allows you to do that, that's all I'm saying.
Not anymore.
Yes, it does, actually.
No.
With, you can transfer on the authorization of the body. And, but we can have that discussion too. Let's just move forward, okay?
You brought it to a town meeting.
Right.
Right, exactly, yeah, yeah, okay, all right.
Ms. Rue, you had another
I'm sorry,
comment?
yes, I had one more thing I forgot to mention.
Yes.
The other part of the attachment, I think was the last sentence of the first paragraph that indicated that the Board of Selectmen didn't have the authority to tie you down to a timeline. On behalf of the Selectmen, they are not trying to tie you down to a timeline to make your recommendations. Back in November, you were notified by the school committee that this April 3rd special town meeting was going to be had. The ordinance for Warrant and Finance simply says that you have to make recommendations on the article. They don't have to be in place next Tuesday. The board's not tying you down to a timeline. I have a letter here from Burke and Clegg, the town's attorney, basically saying that if you don't make recommendations, the board can still sign it on Tuesday, the 20th. We would post it and you'd be welcome to give your recommendations the night of the 3rd. Okay, so we just don't want you to feel like the board is tying you down to anything.
Okay, I don't have a problem with that. Thank you.
Anything else? I would like to take the opportunity just to simply say that we appreciate the school board's cooperation with us. I have two thoughts, though, and this is a thought from a citizen that's only been in the community for 4 years. And one is transparency. Having worked recently with the head of the private road committees across the town, I was amazed that none of the people there had any idea the intricacies of reserve accounts. They obviously thought reserve accounts were to sequester money for a particular reason or for a particular item. But in terms of whether or not they needed to be renewed every year, whether or not they needed to ask for funding automatically to be filled into the account, whether the account lasted at the end of the fiscal year into the next fiscal year, nobody knows about it. From what I look at from a distance is that in this instance here, the school board with the superintendent in good faith set up these reserve accounts. And they did not specify whether or not these accounts were statutory under Title 20A or 30A. It was sent to the Board of Selectmen that approved them, and then it was sent to the voter who didn't know any more about it and approved them as well. It doesn't take away from the fact that we really and truly need to be more transparent so that the citizens learn what all of these things are that are intricate and sometimes very legalistic, but are important if the town is going to run correctly. And this I don't see having happened. And that's why we asked the Board of Selectmen originally when this fiscal year began, to have a meeting with them about that. And they promised that we would get a chance to talk with the auditor. It got off into a different direction, but the fact is that we ought to use the same correct terminology so that people begin to understand that a statutory funding proposal under either 20A or 30A is valid. It has to include the reason for it. It has to include the fact that it is a statutory fund, and then it lasts forever. And why we can't just come to a conclusion of using common nomenclature and use it all the time would be a boon to our citizens, and also eliminate this sort of thing happening 3 or 4 or 5 years down the road when everybody in this room is no longer participating in government function. That's my only point about this. The second thing, this is a good budget. It is meeting the Board of Selectmen's request that nothing goes over 1.5% year on year from the past budget. There are some exceptions, which I pointed out before, and which are in fact present now, and which I hope will be modified and amended in the future. Number one, we have non-teachers in the teachers union with bargaining agreements. The teacher trainee and the school nurse, both of whom make very good salaries. And it's just that they are not teaching our children. They should not be in that union as far as bargaining agreements with the other people who actually give instruction. The second thing is that the school board makes agreements for 3-year periods, which makes it difficult to suggest modifications. And thus the town meeting this year is supporting salaries worked out in 2016. It's not that they can't be changed, but it has never been changed since they've gone to the 3-year program, I think. When we had annual meetings, they were sometimes changed because of a no vote on the part of the town meeting. But the fact is that it's extremely difficult to change these. It comprises 70% of the budget of the department with the biggest budget in our town. And I assume, as an outsider coming in and working with our town and my town, that this means that we're supposed to almost act like a rubber stamp on those particular items. And then it gets sent to the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Selectmen make it a point that they will sign off on this without any other adjustments.
Because they trust the elected
Because they
officials as well.
trust the elected officials. That is correct. I'm not putting any disparaging remarks on them, but nobody else looks at it. And then the Warrant and Finance comes along, and we're not supposed to look at it or try to make changes in that portion of the budget either. Which means that there's no reason to even go through all of this if it's all going to be rubber stamped. And people take offense at it, and all I'm saying is, if I am sitting here and realizing that the movable parts of this under bargaining were made in 2016 and are without change, and the ones last year were made in 2016 and are without change, then I have a hard time thinking that this is a democratic process. If, in fact, Warrant and Finance is, let me finish. Unless you feel that Warrant and Finance should not get involved with these particular 70% of the budget. Now, it's not that you don't do a good job. I think there's 2 members of the school board plus the superintendent, principal, who is an ex officio member of that team that is doing the bargaining. I'm not saying they don't do a good job. I'm just saying that it makes it almost impossible for anyone to change that, because it's not written in stone, but at least it's written in concrete that hasn't quite settled yet, since the contracts are actually signed by the school board after we're finished with it, after the vote of the town, and then they go back and take the data from the bargaining and sign the contracts. But our hands are not tied, or if they're tied with silk rope, as far as trying to make changes in it or suggesting changes. And I don't think that's a part of democracy that is working well. And so, on that point, the budget is less than 1% over year on year, 0.07%. The economic disadvantaged student adjustment of $217,000 came because the school tried very hard to collect data on the economic situation of our students and supply it to the people in Augusta, and were able to get this $217,000. And my hat's off to them for having been so diligent to get accurate figures that the state realized that we have a real challenge and that we need to have financial improvement from the state government to help us. But the fact is, if you can't depend on this particular money, and we didn't have it for the last 2 years, I believe. We had it this year. We don't know if we're going to have it next year. We don't know if the state of Maine, with the way things are going economically, are going to be really pushed to start adding more towns and increasing everyone's amounts, or decreasing everyone's amounts because more towns are involved. Don't know that. But if they had not had this windfall of $217,000, then the budget would be somewhere in the range of 4% or so higher than last year. That's all I wanted to say. I think that there is a reason why we had asked, for the sake of democracy and town government, that we all start using the same terminologies. And we're not doing that. And the thing that is mixed up today and that we've been talking about, and everyone is the fact that these things were put on the ballot back in 2015 and were passed by everybody, probably out of ignorance and not knowing that you had to really have a statutory type of reserve account in order for it to last, or an ordinance of some sort.
You don't. To have one that's durable, you have to.
Yes,
But
it was going to last. It was going to last
for 1
more
year.
than one fiscal year. Exactly. So anyway, I'm going to shut up now. I appreciate everyone listening to my viewpoint on this as a new citizen of Acton. Now, it's open to other people in the committee first. Do you have any comments or questions? And the public?
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Stanton.
Mary Stanton. So I was on the Warrant and Finance years back,
I know.
and the Warrant and Finance can recommend things. What the contract does is tells us the amount of money we have to pay the people who were there. Okay, so there's a scale, and, you know, everyone is on the scale at some point. But if, you know, I would never want this to happen, but if you wanted to recommend less in Article 2, that's your recommendation, and you have a reason for it, maybe you say, we shouldn't have full-time music, art, and gym, you know, and that's the reason why you went down in that category. The people will still get paid at the contract rate, you know, say it went from 40-hour week to 20-hour week, I'm just saying, that's an example. Because you reduced it, and that was your feeling, and then say the town agreed, we should only have half-time music on the gym, I'm just saying, throwing that out. You know, so as a democratic process, you guys can you shouldn't just throw willy-nilly numbers and say, you know what, instead of 2.7 million, how about 1.7 million? You know, that would be like, why did you just reduce it $1 million? Like, what's the reasoning? You know, I mean, so that doesn't work. But if you feel, you know, there's a way, the contract is there so we know how to pay them and what benefits they get.
Bargaining agreement, not contract.
Huh?
Bargaining agreement, you're talking
Well,
about
I
bargaining
always say
agreement. That's what you negotiated.
negotiating.
And you're fine, you're clean.
I know, but
That's
to
what I'm saying, it
me,
works.
if you can't say that's one and the same, whatever.
No.
No.
Uh-huh.
The difference is the bargaining contract does not commit funds. This is the only thing, this is the only part that matters here. The bargaining agreement does not commit funds, therefore it does not commit future town meetings. Okay?
Right.
Future town meetings are committed when you actually when you actually sign the personnel's contract, which as I understand it, we've talked about it several times, is done each year after the town meeting.
All right,
Okay,
but-
so that's good.
So if you're saying that's part of the nomenclature, we're not saying the right things, is that part of it? Because I'm saying contract instead of bargaining agreement, I don't know. But there is a democratic process, because you guys can come up with other numbers. You don't have to agree with us. You sat in the meetings, you went through line by line, and if you saw something that you said, you know what, I don't think they need this year, why don't we take that out? That's how the Warrant and Finance work. That's how we did it. You know, if we felt we should take thing out, it has nothing to do with the contract. You guys would negotiate whatever you feel is appropriate for this town.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Rue?
I was gonna say the exact same thing, basically. I wanna make sure that all the Warrant and Finance members that don't have a history understand that. He keeps saying that you can't go through the process, but you can. You can take any of these numbers and lower them. You can take any number and make any recommendation, so you do have the right to go through and make recommendations and make cuts. So you absolutely have the right. The only reason the Board of Selectmen do not go through them is because they have an elected school committee that the voters voted to do that.
That I understand.
And the attorneys, if I'm correct, have looked at this. The school's outside attorney has looked at this. So the school has a set of attorneys, the town has a different set. So there's gonna be words different. You know, we've said before, you know, you and I could both give directions to get to Sanford, but there might be 3 different ways to get there. It doesn't mean that one's right or one's wrong. We've been over these reserve accounts, we've been through this, you've had attorney after attorney tell you that it's okay. We need to just move on, but you can make changes to this. Like Mary said, if you feel like you don't want a gym teacher, cut it by 60,000. You can do that, it's not all set in stone.
The question I have on the idea of making recommendations on this is the fact, as far as I know, since they've gone to the 3-year process, very little in the way of changes have occurred as far as the results of the bargaining agreements by this committee in the last 5, 6, 7 years.
But the voters were obviously okay with that because they keep electing the same school committee members, so maybe they were okay with the bargaining process that's going on.
Could very well be, but a lot of people really don't know
Right.
some of this material. That's why I say, we really.
Hopefully they'll speak up.
And if lawyers are using different words, we should ask them, please, this is our terminology lexicon. We would prefer you're using this lexicon so that we make sure that our voters know what we're talking about, okay? I'm sorry, I disagree with a lawyer having the right that we're paying for and using terms that we have asked them not to use or should
But the
be
board
asking
hasn't
them
asked
not
them.
to
The
use.
select board
I said
hasn't.
that should be asking them not to use, yes.
John Ross, Superintendent Principal. You mentioned the assumption that some changes have been made since this 3-year collective bargaining process. I've been in public education since 1992. I've known nothing other than from it being a teacher to administrator, anything less than a 3-year contract. I don't know of any communities in Maine that have less than a 3-year contract. And if you do know of a model town that has less than a 3-year contract, please do forward me that information and we can look at that to improve our process. But I've been in this almost a quarter of a century, and because it's my business, I know it quite well. And I know many of you coming to the table as either newer citizens of the town or have perhaps never been involved in the collective bargaining process. But I can assure you in the state of Maine, that is just how business is done. Now, whether I have a personal feeling for unions or not, it doesn't matter. These are the constructs within which I need to run a school department. And I can assure you at this public meeting that a 3-year collective bargaining contract is very normal in the state of Maine. If you can find me a town that is another way of doing business, I'd love to take a look at that and would be open to making suggestions to whomever in the process as we look at this going into the next year. But I want to assure everybody in the room that with a quarter century's experience in this business, this is pretty much what you see across the state.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Any other comments? Committee, any comments?
have we killed the reserve account issue now? That's my question. Because we beat that dog with a big stick for a long time.
What's that?
I'm not an eloquent speaker, I'm not very articulate, but I think I understand what was done. When you initially set the accounts up, and everybody says the school set these accounts up. Did the school actually set the reserve accounts up, or was that done by our treasurer?
School.
The
School committee.
The school
Yeah,
committee?
the school committee did with at the time, Robert England, we were looking at different ways to try to keep a flat, more control on the school budget. So we didn't have to budget for what ifs. So Robert had come up with the concept of setting these reserves aside for those what ifs. So the special education, the excess tuition, okay? And we went through legal counsel to make sure we had the wording correct, that we followed the reserve policy under Title 28, which is in our policy books, in our accounting policy books, and in our school policy on the website.
So, as a general point of information, so that I understand, and hopefully, if anybody watches this, so that they understand, the school's money does not go through the town treasurer. Yes or no?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It
Okay,
does.
so you do business with the bank directly, or no?
No,
Okay.
No.
So it all goes through the treasurer,
wait.
okay?
I'm gonna
That's-
walk around this.
Please
structure.
do, I just want to
Kim,
make sure that,
pull up-
you know,
Kim,
I
pull up a
understand
chair.
it,
Why don't you
and
pull
so
up?
that everybody else understands it, and so we can put these reserve
Okay.
account
So-
questions to
so-
bed.
So let's back up with your first question with the warrant process. How I work with Michelle, with the town, okay? So I had sent everybody a paper that said, this is my checking account balance every month. This is my due to from, which was the offset of my undesignated fund, which
Right.
almost washed, okay? So the school figures out what they need for payroll, what they need for their payables. We submit a bi-weekly warrant. That money goes to the town. There, it goes to the selectmen who sign it off, if they agree with everything that's there. If they do, then the treasurer will transfer the money, usually on Wednesday, to cover all the invoices that would go through on Thursday. Okay, I don't touch it, I don't have any access to the bank at all, okay, I don't sign a check,
Just,
I don't sign anything.
just trying to clarify everything,
And
yeah.
I'm all for
And
it.
I don't have an issue with the reserve accounts. I understand what they were created for, when they were created. I know exactly when they were created,
Yeah,
because I researched it all.
yeah,
I'm just hoping to put it to bed.
yeah, and I just would like to piggyback on you a little bit.
Absolutely.
So in the letter that Mr. Gore wrote, paragraph 4.4, Acton is very aware of the state statutes and all the changes that, we did have to go through changes that affected this year. Really, and the only change was the fact that our Acton, the type of school we are, we had to go from what was a SAD to now a regional school unit. So I had to change all my legal references from 103 to 103-A. When you read the statutes from both sides, the wording is identical. Okay, so really nothing has changed except they reclassified it. All right, but all my financial policies, everything from how to do a budget, the budget process, all our 12 articles, how we do the warrants, everything. It's all in Title 28, under all the financial education, Part 2, school organization, regional school units. So,
So Acton is no longer an SAD.
Yes, it is an SAD.
no.
She's just
no
telling you
RSU.
right now that it's an RSU. Now,
And that came from Tyler Backus from the state of Maine, which I had
Effective?
sent you the email which he gave to me.
to me, it's semantics anyway,
Yeah,
okay?
It is,
You're going
because like
from
I
this
said-
to this, you know, I'm
Yeah.
calling you this. Oh, now we're gonna call you this.
Right. But
Everything is still the
the
same.
wording for every article is still the same, whether it was for the reserves, or whether it was for budget process, whether it's for budget adoption, everything in the two,
Understand.
where all the statutes were the same, so.
Thank What else do you wanna piggyback?
Well, the other thing is, when it comes to changing Articles 2 through 12 to appropriate from expend, all schools follow the same work format.
No, I'm looking.
Articles 2 through 12 reference the total amount the school can expend within the article. All appropriate and raising of funds is within Articles 13 through 15. So I don't really think the town wants to appropriate twice for the same amount. So I also had sent Dr. Williams and the town, I asked for Sanford and RSU 57's warrant. And you'll find that those warrants are written exactly as our warrants are written. The wording for, they use are identical to ours, and they also use the same wording, RSU 57, for their reserve accounts as we did for ours.
May I just, one comment, and I think probably somebody has a computer, they can look it up. If you look up the first section of Title 20A, the first section is definitions. Look under school administrative districts, and the first kind of school you'll find under that list is municipal school units. Everything came under SADs because the term, the school administrative unit, the school administrative district is in the Constitution of the state of Maine. And that's a contributing factor in the revision of the law. Yeah. I'll take a look at that right now.
Can you pass it though so everybody can see it before she was?
Oh, I haven't even looked at this, and I really don't wanna go, is there a reason why you,
I didn't bring this.
Oh, okay.
It was handed to me.
That's
Ms.
what,
Rue would like
Kim was
you to
referring
pass
to,
it
the
over.
sample, she was referring to the sample warrants from RSU 57.
oh, okay.
And
But
Sanford.
But we're
We wanted
not, we're not an RSU because we're
I'm
not
just
organized
showing you the
under
exact
chapter.
wording, I
Right.
passed it on because she mentioned it, I thought the committee might like to see it.
All right, that's fine, I'd be happy to see it, thank you, Jen. But if anybody has a computer and they wanna look it up right now, if you look under Title 28, under definitions for SADs, you will find that in this last revision to the statute, municipal school units are the first one listed there. And we are not an RSU because we're not organized under Chapter 103. If we organize under Chapter 103, we can become an RSU. And that's a definition of an RSU, organized under Chapter 103. I think my chapter reference is correct. All right, let's move on. Mr. Waterhouse, you want to move on, right?
Am I done?
Oh,
Keep going. You're doing good.
I don't want to rubber stamp anybody's request.
Can I
Okay.
just- oh, I'm sorry.
By all means,
I'm
speak
sorry,
up.
I also just, Tyler Backus is the head of the Maine Department of Education and Finance. And I had sent him an email and I asked him specifically about what statutes to follow for our municipality. And his response is municipalities are Chapter 111, but for financing follow the RSU Chapter 103A, Subchapter 4. And when we're talking specifically about reserve funds, they're specifically noted in Section 1491. So Tyler Backus, he's the top guy at the state, and I will follow what he tells me to do.
and Kim, you are correct that for budgeting purposes, you follow the rules for an RSU. For budget preparation purposes, the statute specifically says for budget preparation purposes, you follow the rules and regulations for an RSU. For budget validation processes, however, that's a separate ballgame.
Well, we voted down budget validation, so that isn't.
But no, budget validation covers the whole field of getting the budget approved, okay? So, but we have different options there, but let's try and move on. We can discuss this more if you want to, all right?
No.
We're not discussing.
No.
Okay.
Do you want to hold off on the rest of your thing as we vote, or how, do you want to continue?
No, I want to put a motion before the committee so we can refine our position on,
Okay.
on these reserve funds.
All right.
I have, and I will just note before I begin this, that I have consistently asked to be disproved. Nobody will sit down and show me legislation. I don't want pieces of paper that are pieces of books. Show me the legislation, and I don't have a problem admitting I'm wrong. I have stood in front of the town meeting as chairman of the board of selectmen and said I screwed up. Show me that I've screwed up, that's fine. How many times have I asked for that? And I haven't gotten it. 3 years now. I'm as sick of it as everybody else is. But if you actually look at the statutes that apply to the town, there is no provision and no allowance for contingency accounts at all under Title 20. There are for RSUs under Title 20, but not for municipal school units. No, you're not. Only for purposes of budget preparation is what the statute says. All right, I'm going to stop then.
Thank you, Mr. Gore. Just,
Did you want to say something, Mr. Ross?
Did you just call on me, Mr. Gore, Ms. Williams?
I don't have the power to call.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Williams. In respect to Mr. Gore's comment about, has asked for several times, at a meeting a couple of weeks ago, I did say to Tom, you and I have never sat down and really talked over this, so approximately 3 weeks ago now, Mr. Williams, Mr. Gore, myself, Ms. Shane, Kim Oliver, and I think that was it in the meeting. In my office, we went through, and I think I asked the question, so what are the issues? And we kind of went through some of the issues, and I committed to everybody in the meeting that day to expend some funds with Drummond and Woodson to look at this, because I didn't want to get to tonight and find out that we were wrong. That's just not good practice as an administrator. We got a 7-page report back from Drummond and Woodson that I shared with everybody at the following Warrant and Finance and School Committee meeting that suggested that under every question that we asked, that basically what has been done in good faith and is legal, and we can continue, and can basically, to summarize, we can continue to move on the way we've been doing business. It was my hope that after that meeting that would be enough to hopefully put this to rest. That was the intent of the meeting, and that was the purpose of asking our attorneys to look into it. So I just want to know that that step was taken and that information has been shared.
And we appreciate that, or I appreciate it. Oh, excuse me.
I would say that as far as our dealings with the school board, they've been excellent. There is no reason to believe anyone has not told the truth. Mr. Ross certainly did discuss it very earnestly with us and did do the next step in terms of asking counsel for an official opinion. I guess my only problem with the council is that it worries me when you have the phrase that not without doubt is a legal phrase, which means, hey, it's maybe 50-50. There may be some things in here that are not as valid as other things. That is a legal phrase, not without doubt, that at least I, as a non-lawyer, have had dealings with before, albeit in other states, which is a polite way of saying, maybe there's room for discussion in this. All right, that was the only thing that caught my ear that made me not totally 100% pleased with the discussion. And it wasn't because of your not wanting to come to a valid and just conclusion, Mr. Ross.
If I could just repeat, that's an excellent point to pick up on. And at the very beginning of the conversation with our attorney, which is the conversation that kind of unfolds in the letter, is the way he described this is the way statutes are developed, and I'm not an attorney, but the legislature will meet and develop a statute, and then things will be fine, we'll cruise along for about a decade, and then 10 years later, something may bubble up in Augusta, and they'll add more language or an amendment to the legislation, to the statute, and without really going back and understanding what are the implications of this amendment to this statute 10 years ago.
Exactly.
And this continues through time where it gets a little muddy, and he even said that some of this, you have to be very careful, and you have to use a pretty clear lens as the more you drill, the more you may find some contradictions. So nothing about this is super clear, where you can just say it's black or white, and that's why I felt even more comfortable giving it to somebody like Bill Stockmeyer to take a look at and give us a good attorney's opinion on this, because for a layperson to be able to cull through this, I would think would be pretty difficult.
I would just say that, excuse me, may I? I would just say that I have two issues with what Bill Stockmeyer did. One was that all he did was address statutory accounts. He did not address anything to do with the ability of the town to create its own reserve accounts, which it routinely does and has forever and ever, and they operate under a different set of rules. The other issue is that there are several different references and statutes in both Title 20 and Title 30A to reserve accounts. They have different rules that apply. So, if you're going to create a statutory account, you have to name the rule and have to set the rules. This is done without rules. Okay? That's where the problem is, because nobody knows how you're supposed to administer them, and the school committee has asserted that they can carry these funds from year to year to year without approval of the town meeting and spend from them without approval of the town meeting, right? So we don't have any rules. Confusing for the voter? It's confusing for me. It's also confusing for the voter. That's transparency. That's going back to that issue.
Yes, Ms. Shea.
When these articles were drawn up, they clearly gave the school committee permission to spend from those reserve accounts only for that particular thing. If you have a special ed child that moves in and you need an extra $50,000 that wasn't in your budget, the school committee has permission from the town body to take only from that special account for special education and take care of that expense. Same thing with any of the others. They're all very.
And is that not under Title 20A?
Yes.
Okay, so all we're asking is be consistent. Be consistent with the nomenclature. Reserve account under 20A. So then we know where we're standing, because there are differences between the two titles as far as statutory reserve accounts. All we're asking is nomenclature that could be accepted, so we don't have to get in this mess 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now. That's all we're asking. We're not asking for any changes in what you're doing. We're asking for changes in terms of terminology, and I don't see why that is such a terrible thing to ask for.
May I comment on Judy's remark? Judy, you're correct that I have no issue with these having been established in the year in which they were established. Okay? They were established legally, but for the duration of 1 year. If you remember our hearings last year when we talked at Warrant and Finance and School Committee, I asked, are you going to carry these? The answer was no. All right? They were under the statute, under the authority of the town meeting. You can create these kinds of accounts anytime and anyone under any set of rules you want, as long as you don't frustrate state law. Okay? But you cannot carry them beyond 1 year without the authorization of the town meeting, nor can you appropriate from them in subsequent years, after that initial year, after that initial authorization is granted by the town meeting, because the authorization of the town meeting is good for 1 year. It has a life of 1 year. After that, that government's done, and you start all over again. That's the key to the town meeting, and that's where the common law process comes in. And understanding how that works is vitally important to understand the town meeting process. Let me move on. Okay, Mr. Waterhouse made the comment last time we met that it's never going to be perfect, and I'm inclined to agree. But our job as Warrant and Finance, and everybody's job who's serving in government, is to make it as good as we can. And that's all we can do. It's never going to be perfect, I agree. But in order to go back, do I have your permission to proceed? Okay. To clarify the position of Warrant and Finance, the following motion is offered to Warrant and Finance for consideration. And you've all seen most of these terms before. The authority to manage, that's establish, raise, appropriate, and carry municipal funds resides with the Acton Town Meeting. Municipal officers and officials request authority from the town meeting in the form of warrant articles to manage the funds for the town meeting. The authority is granted by an affirmative vote of the town meeting. All authority granted by the vote of the town meeting expires at the end of the fiscal year, except for authority granted by the town meeting under municipal ordinance or state statute. You have to establish it under state statute in order for it to be durable. Articles 19 through 25 of the April 28, 2015 town meeting established, funded, and appropriated reserve funds under the authority of the town meeting without reference to municipal ordinance or state statute, either Title 20A or 30A. The authority of that town meeting expired as of the end of fiscal year 2016. The school department has asserted the right to carry and spend funds from those accounts in perpetuity, citing authority under state statute, but the town meeting was never asked, nor did it grant authority to establish those accounts under the authority of state statute. No request for authority to carry or appropriate these funds was made to the fiscal year 2017 town meeting. The funds lapsed into the undesignated fund balance at the end of fiscal year 2016 per Article 53 of the June 18th, 2016 town meeting. Any use of the funds after that date would, actually after the end of that fiscal year, would be a misappropriation of municipal funds. School Department Counsel's letter of 3/6/2018 asserted broadly that the accounts were enabled under Title 20A. When the question really is if or why the town should consider the accounts as having been created as statutory accounts. That followed by the failure to identify specific enabling statutes for each of the accounts, the council's note of caution that the opinion reached in the letter are, not without doubt, further inform and affirm the conclusion of Warrant and Finance that the funds lapsed as stated above. And I'm going to just add, that's the end of my motion. I'm just going to add one thing. You know, the terminology, not without doubt, inserted in this letter says it's a warning flag. It says there's significant reason that this opinion could be questioned. We don't need opinions that can be questioned. We need a description of the law, not advocacy. And that letter is advocacy, in my opinion. Okay, that's my motion. If somebody wants to second it, that's fine. If nobody wants to second it, that's fine.
Okay, your motion is?
What is the motion?
I read the motion, and I told you what. Yeah, it started out. The authority to manage, establish, raise, appropriate, clarify municipal funds resides with the Acton Town Meeting. And before I read that, I said to clarify the position of the town meeting, the following motion is offered to Warrant Finance for consideration.
So the motion, make the motion right now in English.
I'll read it again if you'd like to.
No, just read the motion. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that, and then make the motion, please.
What? We can do this again?
No,
The whole
just-
half page?
Is it the whole half page you're talking about?
Or just the first
Or just that
paragraph?
sentence?
All right. We all have it in front of us.
Yes. We have it in front of us along with explanations further down to the end of the page. Which part is the motion, and read it to us?
That whole thing is the motion.
Oh, my
On
God.
which article?
It's not on an article. It is a motion to express the opinion of Warrant and Finance Committee about the efficacy of the reserve accounts. It's in parentheses. I'm asking you to vote whether you agree with this or not.
There is a motion before this committee, before we start going through the articles, 1 hour into this meeting, that states that Articles 19 through 25 were funded as reserve funds without any further designation as to whether or not they were statutory or ordinance, thus allowing them to be used beyond the end of that fiscal year for which they were intended. Is that the motion?
I
In a
have
nutshell.
offered between parentheses, okay, my conclusions with respect to the efficacy of these funds and why I have come to that conclusion.
Where does that stop? All I want,
It starts with a parentheses where the authority to manage, it is a statement about the funds. And it ends with the parentheses down at the bottom of the page there.
oh my God.
So that whole paragraph.
So you have that as a motion.
I have it
I
as,
will second that motion. Can I get a
Right.
vote on it,
It
please?
has been moved and seconded. And just for the audience and for the television, this is simply a rehash of what this last discussion has occurred.
So-
And that the school department has asserted the right to carry and spend funds from these accounts in perpetuity, citing authority under state statute, but the town meeting was not asked, nor did it grant authority to establish these accounts under the authority of state statute.
It almost seems like more of a comment than a motion.
it is a
to me.
comment, what I have done here is express what my conclusion is, that's the purpose, and I'm asking you whether you agree with it or do not agree with that conclusion.
Then your motion is, do you agree with this argument, starting up at the middle of this page to the bottom?
Right.
Which, of the stuff that I've just got finished talking about.
And I've given you a second, please.
And it has
Can we
been
vote on this?
seconded. If there's any further questions from the committee? Yes.
So, to boil it down, to establish a reserve fund, you need to cite the authority under which you're establishing them.
That's
If you are,
correct.
yeah, if you are,
to the town. Pardon?
I'm sorry, if you want to establish a durable
Beyond the fiscal
reserve
year
account,
in question.
you have before you, I think, the last warrant that you ever signed as
Right.
chairman of the board, in which you establish, I think, there 5 reserve accounts in
Right.
one article, right?
Yep.
Now, did you ever imagine that 3 years down the line, without those funds being carried on the warrant every year, that some board would say, oh, look at this reserve fund over here, we can spend from this for what we think we should, at our discretion, without asking the town meeting?
No, because they're set up. as
Those are
reserve-
established under the authority of the town
Reserve
meeting.
accounts.
They have to be carried. And I would also note, again, this goes to clarity, that regardless, we do have what are believed to be, or what the selectmen maintain are reserve accounts within municipal budgets, but our treasurer, every year, to her credit, puts them in a list to be carried. She has not missed, I have looked, and that's a difference in
All right, it's been moved in and seconded.
Call the vote, please.
All in favor signify by raising your hand.
You're either agreeing or disagreeing.
Right, you agree or disagree?
That the reserve, if you're going to create. a
No,
reserve
with
fund-
you're either agreeing or disagreeing with Tom Gore's opinion. That is what the motion is.
That if you're going to have a reserve account that goes on beyond the fiscal year in which it was introduced,
Right.
it has to either be an ordinance or a statutory reserve account, either under 20A or 30A.
But the thing is that it must be cited. That is
Right,
the
that's key,
crux.
exactly, it has to be stated in the article.
Under which
Authority is created.
authority.
Yes, that's
of
correct.
Creating it.
Right,
Yes.
unless it's established simply as a town meeting.
Okay, there's a vote on that.
Unless it's carried
Right.
year to year.
Right, right.
There's a vote on the floor. It's been seconded. I'm going to ask again if there's any other discussion amongst the committee members.
I do have a question. So are you saying that you want to see how much on each of these articles, how much money came from a reserve account?
No, no.
Okay.
All I'm saying is, what I have
Make-
tried to do is,
make a recommendation and clarification.
is summarize for you what my research indicates to me about the schools' reserve accounts created at the 2015 town
And
meeting.
again,
This is my
This
conclusion.
has nothing to do with any sort of malfeasance or anything else of that sort. The school department has acted in good faith. The Board of Selectmen has acted in good faith. The voters have acted in good faith, but the whole process was tainted by the fact that there wasn't enough information to allow it to be looked at as a statutory, as a statutory
Wasn't created
fund.
as a statutory account.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Now we're going to have a vote.
Yes.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Please.
Yes. There's way too much verbiage here.
I agree.
For a motion, and you've been doing motions longer than I've been alive, I think, it needs to be concise, easy to understand. And if I can't understand it, I'm sure there's a lot of other people
Okay.
watching TV that can't
Point of order,
understand it
Mr.
either.
Chairman.
I want it shrunk into short sentences that are easy to understand and simple. Otherwise, I would abstain from voting on it.
You cannot abstain. I want to vote yes
I
or no.
can't, then it's no.
All right, then, let's back up and let me restate the motion.
Thomas,
Okay.
this is getting to be almost ridiculous now. The major thing here is, and if you want me, I will write it out after this meeting, if I have a consensus from this group. But it's basically the fact that if you want to have a reserve account that's going to go beyond the fiscal year in which it was made, it has to be either, well, it has to be an ordinance or a statutory reserve account, which means that in the actual voting piece, it states based on whatever 20A, 30A, and specifically what it is dedicated to do.
Well, you're just citing either the authority of either law, one law or the other, or your third option is to carry forward your reserve.
Right.
Yes.
Right, and appropriate your reserve year to year if you want to.
And appropriate annually, which is also, if you don't want to put statutory information in there and make it a statutory reserve, then just do it every year.
Right.
That's fine. Okay, I'll make that statement. I'll
Okay.
write it out
But
clearly and
what is this
succinctly.
motion in regards to the school board? Or, I just don't
Yeah.
understand the
Procedures, isn't it?
relevance.
How we're gonna do things going forward.
This is a recommendation to everybody involved, I think, is that we, as a group, want to reiterate what we feel the law is.
But we haven't, there's nothing that we're acting on.
Not at this point.
No,
Not at this point. No, no.
we're not acting on anything in the warrant here, we're just finding.
Agreeing as a committee.
Yes.
Agreeing as a
that
committee.
This is our general
Understand.
philosophy
Right.
for
Yes,
clarity.
for
Exactly.
reserve
Right.
accounts.
This
Yes.
has no immediate effect on.
All right, all in favor? All in favor signify with hand raised. All opposed? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 1. Did you get that, Ms. Rue?
It's not on the warrant, so I'm not,
That's
it's
fine.
not, it's not a motion, it has nothing to do with the
No,
warrant.
it has nothing to do
so
with
I'm
it.
good.
That's fine.
General consensus.
I'll put it in as far as the
Mr. Chairman.
minutes, which I will do tonight with a little cocktail.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Ms. Rue had a point of order. I'd like to hear the point of order, please.
Ms. Ruma actually covered it for me. My question was, what was this motion pertaining to and where did it fall in the article? And so I was.
It doesn't have anything to do with any warrant.
All
It has
right.
nothing to do with-
First one is going to be Article number 2
On this budget?
on this budget.
Yay, let's do it.
To see what the town of Acton will authorize the school committee to expend for regular instruction. The school committee recommends to expend $2,743,537 for regular instruction. And it passed 5-0. Warrant and Finance Committee recommends, okay.
Make a
open-
motion, we accept the school committee's recommendation to expend
There's been a motion that we accept the
2,743,537
7
for regular
as
instruction.
recommended by the school committee for regular instruction. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Seconded. Okay, discussion. Only if it's short.
I
Only
am,
if it's short.
I am simply going to object and say no on 2 through 12 for the same reasons I have said it for the past 2 years. Okay, it has nothing to do with the amount appropriated or expended, it does
Okay.
have to do with the wording.
That's fine. You don't have
And,
to explain yourself
okay.
at this stage of the
Thank
game.
you.
All in favor, say aye, or raise your hand so I can see it. And all opposed? Okay, fine. Article 3, to see what the town of Acton will authorize the school committee to expend for special education. The school committee recommends to expend $1,035,551 for special ed. It was passed 5-0. Warrant and Finance Committee recommends.
Make a motion, we accept the school committee's recommendation to spend 1,035,551 for special education.
Is there a second?
Second,
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? A vote then, all in favor? All opposed?
5-1.
Article 4, to see what sum the town of Acton will authorize the school committee to expend for career and technical education. The school committee recommends to expend no monies for career and technical education. 5-0, Warrant and Finance Committee recommends.
Unfortunately, I will recommend that Warrant and Finance go with the school committee's recommendation, although I feel that career and technical education should have some money spent. However, I will go with what the school committee recommends.
So you are making a motion.
That's
to
correct.
approve it. Is there a second to that motion? Is there no second to that motion?
oh, second.
I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise their hand. All opposed?
5-1.
Article 4.
Yeah.
5. To see what sum the town of Acton will authorize the school committee to expend for other instruction. School committee recommended to expend $50,400 for other instruction. That passed 5-0. Warrant and Finance Committee recommends.
To accept the school committee's recommendation.
Is there a
Second.
second to the motion? Any further discussion? All in favor? Raise your hand.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
All
5-1.
opposed?
5-1. He's already told you.
I don't care. I'm
Point of
gonna
order.
have
He's already
him-
told you
gonna
that
have
he's going
him
to
raise
vote
his hand
no.
every time.
Thank you.
Article 6, to see what sum the town of Acton will authorize the school committee to expend for student and staff support. The school committee recommends to expend $527,043 for student and staff support. It passed the school board 5-0. Warrant and Finance Committee recommends.
We accept the school committee's recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by raising your hand. All opposed, raise his hand. Article 7. To see what sum the town of Acton will authorize the school committee to expend for system administration. School committee recommends to expend $213,828 for system administration. It was passed 5-0. Warrant and Finance.
We accept the school committee's recommendation.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Raise your hand. All opposed? Article 8, to see what sum the town of Acton will authorize the school committee to expend for school administration. The school committee recommends to expend $128,074 for school administration. It passed 5-0. Warrant and Finance Committee recommends.
Accept the school committee's recommendation.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? Article 9, to see what sum the town of Acton will authorize the school committee to expend for student transportation. The school committee recommends to expend $297,000 for student transportation, and it passed 5-0. Warren Finance Committee.
Accept the school committee's recommendation.
Let him walk. Second motion.
Any further discussion?
Roll into it.
All in favor, raise your hand.
Wait,
All
Tom.
opposed?
Mr. Williams, so Tom, you're in favor of that when you raised your hand
No,
forward?
I'm sorry.
No.
I didn't. I
You
didn't.
did, though.
I did.
He was just
I put my
being,
hand down. I
he
sorry.
was just being
I was
really
being
excited.
nervous.
Okay.
The secretary
The vote-
appreciates it, a clear vote.
I'm keeping it,
5-1.
I'm keeping it. We'll be able to compare our votes at the end of the meeting. 5-1. Article 10, to see what sum the town of Acton will authorize the school committee to expend for facilities maintenance. School committee recommends to expend $460,224 for facilities maintenance, and it passed there at 5-0.
Recommend we accept the school, move we recommend the school committee's recommendation.
Is there a second?
Accept the school
Second.
committee.
Any further discussion on this particular article? All in favor, raise your hand. Opposition?
Which article is this?
This is number 10.
Okay. Opposition, yes.
5-1.
Article 11, to see what sum the town of Acton will authorize the school committee to expend for debt service and other commitments. The school committee recommends to expend no dollars for debt service. They have none, passed 5-0.
Move we accept the school committee's recommendation.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. All against?
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed the vote. Request you take a vote again, please.
Reconsider.
Reconsider.
Motion
Okay.
to reconsider.
There's a motion to reconsider. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor of reconsidering it at the request of a member? All opposed? Go for it, Mr. Waterhouse.
I just missed the vote. I, didn't raise my hand, and I want it to be a legal vote.
All
So
right,
can we-
so let's pay attention to the chair, please.
I will
All in
try.
favor?
Up the
Signify
article.
by
Which article?
Well, the article he asked for is to repeat it, right?
12, right.
Article 11.
Yes.
11. So repeating it again, to see what the town of Acton will authorize the school committee to expend. The school committee recommends to expend no dollars for debt service, and this passed 5-0. If there's no further discussion, all,
Move we accept the school committee's recommendation.
seconded. Wonderful. All in favor, raise
I'll
your
vote
hand.
in favor of this one.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Vote changed.
Okay,
So,
6-0.
I stand corrected.
Article 12, to see what sum the town of Acton will authorize the school committee to expend for all other expenditures, including nutrition. The school committee recommends to expend $143,461 for all other expenditures, including nutrition. This vote was 5-0. Warrant and Finance Committee recommends.
We accept the school committee's recommendation.
Is there a second to that motion?
second,
Any
reluctant.
further discussion?
I think it should be more money.
Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Articles 13 and 14 raise funds for the proposed school budget. Article 13,
Waive the reading. This was read at the school board meeting, which was read, and unless there's objection, I'll make a motion that we waive the reading.
a motion to,
I second the motion.
okay, all in favor of not reading the entire article? Any opposed? Okay, the school committee recommends to appropriate $3,655,151.39 for the total cost of funding public education from pre-kindergarten to grade 12, and to raise $3,203,254.74 as the municipality's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from pre-kindergarten to grade 12. It passed 5-0. Do I hear a motion?
Move we accept the school committee's recommendation.
I'll second it.
And it's been seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposition? Article 14.
I'll waive the reading of this also, and make a motion to waive the reading.
Second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded that the reading be waived. Any further discussion on this issue? If not, may I hear all in favor? All
On the
against?
motion.
Of the motion, yes. To
Yes.
waive the reading.
To waive the reading.
Thanks.
So, basically what this does, I'll just, to see what sum the municipality will raise and appropriate in additional local funds.
No, you're on Article 13, Bill. 13.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
14.
14.
14.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, I stand corrected. Yeah, that's correct. We are. I apologize.
To see what sum the municipality will raise and appropriate in additional local funds, recommended $1,708,965.65 that exceeds the state's essential programs and services allocation model by $1,708,965.65 as required to fund the budget recommended by the school committee, and then you have a list of breakdowns on that figures.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make the motion.
Well, that's the next thing, isn't it? Make a motion, yes, go ahead.
That Warrant and Finance Committee recommend the following. Raise 15095,586.67 and appropriate lapsed reserve funds established by the April 28, 2015 town meeting and lapsed in accordance with Article 53 of the June 18, 2016 town meeting, amounting to $199,378.98 from the undesignated fund balances. The total of funds raised and appropriated from the undesignated fund balance being $1,708,965.65 to be appropriated and authorize the funding request of the school department.
So explain your, is there a second to that motion? I'll second it, just to listen to what this is supposed to be all about.
Okay. Right now, the amount of the reserve funds that were established by that meeting is almost $200,000. It's $199,378.98.
In what accounts?
In the reserve accounts that we've been talking about.
What reserve accounts are you talking about?
The reserve accounts are the reserve accounts that were established by the April 28, 2015 town meeting. And we just voted as a committee that we agreed they lapsed.
When did we vote that they lapsed?
The chairman has made an error. The Article 14 as waived, but read the first paragraph, needs to have a motion on it first, and then your amendment motion. I want to hear
No, we're making a recommendation. We're not voting on the article.
well, we're on Article 14.
Right, and our job here is to make a recommendation on that article. That's our sole job. We're not amending the article. We cannot amend the article.
That doesn't have the reserve accounts in it. Article 14.
This is Tom's
does not
making his
contain-
recommendation.
does not contain the
Hmm?
reserve accounts.
Tom's
That's
making a
correct.
motion of the
That's correct.
recommendation.
In regards, the amounts of money are the same, is that correct?
No, that amount of money, the reserve account, is not in that figure.
Well, that's the figure, that's the sum of the reserve accounts that.
You are trying to recoup from the school,
No,
and you're not gonna get them.
fine. That's the decision of the town meeting, but the town meeting deserves the right to make that decision.
I concur, the town meeting has the right to make all decisions for the town,
Right.
okay? But I don't feel that we as a committee should be looking at trying to right something that may have not been done exactly correct,
Okay?
okay?
You're entitled to that opinion, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. What I am saying is, or what this motion does is, it puts those funds back on the table for the town meeting to decide how it wishes to dispose of them, instead of just
I have a
continuing on
question.
the way we are.
Is this not going to confuse voters?
Well,
I
would
would
say-
think that this is confusing to try to, we've made the point that we are begging the Board of Selectmen and the school board to make changes to allow this to go through seamlessly. And they obviously, I hope, have gotten the message that for very little on their part, they can straighten this out as far as terminology and nomenclature. Now, this is fine, but my point is, if I were a voter and this came up as a recommendation to change it all, as long as we're not denying any money with your counter motion, it's very confusing to the average voter at
May I
this
say
stage.
something? May I say something?
Yes, sir.
I would say, if you don't like it, vote it down. I don't,
Oh, no.
you know, I'm not,
No.
I'm not going to be offended.
Tom,
I'm
I
just
know
saying,
that-
putting it on the table, vote it down.
But you have a motion that Mr. Gore made.
Yes, that's
I-
right.
and you
Is there any more
seconded
discussion?
the emotion-
I
the
second it.
motion.
Is there any more
Call the
discussion?
vote.
Okay, all in favor of the motion of Mr. Gore, and I won't even bother to try to repeat what he wants to do in terms of juggling funds, signify by raising your hand. All opposed? It's too complex, Tom.
That's fine.
It's not simple. All right, now we'll get back to the thing at hand, which is Article 14.
May I just make one other comment here?
Oh, dear God,
And I think it's
yes.
on paper, it has to do with the $150,000 that's transferred, that is now undesignated funds, and the calculation indicates they're going to be moved and used. You need somewhere in here or in the annual town meeting an appropriation for these. If it was possible for the school committee to use undesignated funds and transfer those without an appropriation by the town meeting, then we don't have any, we could just have one big giant fund, and people could come from the undesignated fund balance and take any money they wanted to at any point in time and use it for anything.
Which $150,000 you in reference to?
If you look at Article 14,
The second one on the line.
it says less school undesignated funds. What that amounts to is suggesting, it
That is
doesn't
the-
say, and this is not part of the article, it does not say, but in this math that's done here, the additional funds calculation, you will see minus $150,000. Okay?
That's school undesignated.
Undesignated fund.
Yes.
What this is suggesting is that there is to be a transfer from the undesignated funds to fund the school budget. What I'm saying is, that's fine, but nowhere in here is there an appropriation, and there has to be an appropriation to cover that. You have to have authorization for that transfer to take place. If you did not require an authorization, then all the town would need would be one large undesignated fund, and the officers could transfer from it at any point in time.
Actually, he has a point.
Well, so, at the annual town meeting, be sure to include an article if you want this, because you're not gonna get it in this one.
It's in Article 15.
In what?
If you read Article 15,
Yes.
the same one has the July 1st to June 30th, like it does every year. At the very end, non-state funded school construction projects, additional local funds for school purposes under the Maine Revised Statutes, Title 28, Section 15690, unexpended balances, tuition receipts, there's your unexpected. The use of unexpended balances is your undesignated funds, tuition receipts, state subsidy, and other receipts for the support of the schools.
So it's authorizing it, then it's.
Yes.
The third line is what she's talking about.
Okay, part of this is it's unclear what's part of the article and what's not, but, Article 15,
It's there.
authorize the school committee to expend in fiscal year.
Oh, the school undesignated funds, but aren't they designated though?
No, they're undesignated at this point in
They're
time. The problem is, again, there's no appropriation here.
No, wait a minute.
Where does it say appropriate?
Is this balances that you anticipate, or is this your reserve funds?
No, this isn't reserve funds.
No reserve funds.
Right,
So-
these are not reserve.
Okay, I'll try to do it in a simple way. In this fiscal year, we have budgeted a certain amount of expenditures.
Right.
Okay? But sometimes we might not spend it all, so you
I-
have a little
I
bit left.
understand that.
Okay? The same with revenues, we budget a certain amount of revenues,
Right.
but sometimes we might get more revenues, okay?
Right.
So both of those numbers go into our undesignated fund balance, any excess goes into it. What
Okay,
you
so
do
this
with it-
is unanticipated revenues plus funds you did not expend.
Right, in
It's
this
not
fiscal year.
referring to your reserve account.
Correct.
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 And then
when you have a certain amount left in like this fiscal year, you use that to offset
Right,
next
I
fiscal year.
understand.
So that way, your fund balance stays in a level place, okay? So that way, we don't go above beyond the 3%.
Right.
We keep it at an even level all the way across. That's how you keep it consistent.
Right.
So that's what the 150,000 is what I'm anticipating we're gonna have left in this year's budget to be able to offset next year's budget.
Right.
Okay,
So
Article
that
50.
basically is offsetting, it's a tax offset, it's giving it back to the people.
Okay, I was just wondering whether that was the reserve account.
No, it has nothing to do with
or
reserve
this
account.
is money you
All right.
anticipate not expending or more funds that you took in.
Mr. Gore has the floor.
Thank you. This article is to expend that you need an authorization to move money from one to another. You need the authority to take money out of and commit it. That's what an appropriation does. And the town meeting has to approve that. All this does is expend money. It does not authorize the removal of those funds from the undesignated fund balance. To move money from the undesignated fund balance to any designated fund, that requires an act of the town meeting. Otherwise, going back to my other argument that I made a few minutes ago, we could have one large undesignated fund for the whole town, and everybody could come along and expend anytime you had an article to expend it. You need to be able to have the authority to move it from there to there.
I would ask for a comment from Mr. Ross. Mr. Ross, you understand what Mr. Gore is
I
saying?
do. And the way we've been doing business is the way number 15 is written, and as the question was asked, is this unexpended funds in a given budget year? The answer is yes, it's not reserves. And the way 15 is written and proposed to the town with a positive, hopefully a positive vote on April 3rd, that will allow that transfer.
So you're saying that the way this is written, it automatically tells the voter that this is going to be placed from the undesignated fund
And that's-
into a specific.
Permission Act is the town vote on that.
So you're asking the town by putting in here less school undesignated funds. I just wish that, I just wish that that had been put in the body of the ordinance now, looking at it, because I certainly agree with Tom, but here again, we're getting into a fine point here, because you are saying that it's undesignated funds, you're going to use it for this purpose. Tom, they didn't do it properly, but they've done it.
When we write an article, raise, or we transfer, or we get funds from a place and we're allowed to spend them someplace else, two-step process. You have to find an origin for the funds, and then you have to define how those funds are going to be used when you write an article.
Let me ask you this.
This says
Without
spend, but it does not say.
Without making another article and taking the word less out there and putting transfer school undesignated funds, would that serve the purpose?
Apply.
Apply school undesignated funds?
Well, what I would.
Would that then give the voters a chance to see this and to cover the legal thing of requiring the voter to make that change?
Can I make a suggestion that
I'm
I think
listening.
clarify the issue perfectly? Clarify the issue, amend the article a small piece, offer an amendment to amend the article a small piece to appropriate from the undesignated fund balance $150,000 and insert that into here. If somebody in here wants to make that amendment, we can offer it as an amendment to go on the floor of the town meeting, and that solves the whole issue. Then it's appropriated, and then you can expend it.
Can that be included in the Article 14?
No, you can't touch the article. It has to be an amendment,
That's
and
what I
it can
figured.
originate with this
In
committee.
our recommendation.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yes.
Okay, so what somebody here would do would be to make we recommend, okay?
I'm writing it, go for it. Recommend.
We recommend, okay, this has to get inserted into the article. I have to go to the article to get it right. Or we could simply say,
Well, you know, you're not changing the article because,
No, we can't change the article.
No.
But we can recommend an amendment to the article to
but this
appropriate.
is just an explanation underneath.
Right,
It's not part of
just
your
the budget.
article.
exactly.
It's just the budget.
Okay, it expends, and it doesn't appropriate. So, okay, so why don't we just offer an amendment to this that we insert, see if the town will,
Spend and appropriate.
to see if the town will vote to appropriate $150,000 from the undesignated fund balance. And all you have to do is insert that in there, see if the town will vote
You're raising it.
to appropriate $150,000 from the undesignated fund balance and authorize.
You're raising appropriate.
Say that again now, let's make sure I have it.
To see if the town of Acton will vote to appropriate $150,000 from the undesignated fund balance and then,
Wait, you would have to change the expend. You'd have to lower that by 150,000.
no, because again, you're spending that, you're allowed to spend that once you appropriate it.
No, but in the Warrant and Finance,
Which are
In-
14.
you're talking about 15. In other
15.
words, The
This is-
Warrant and
this is
Finance
14.
Committee would
14.
recommend.
This is 14,
We're on 14.
You're on 14?
Yes.
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 I'm sorry, I thought we did.
Kim was saying that the escalation is in 15.
Right. No, I'm proposing an amendment to 15 here
To
because we need to
14.
appropriate that money.
So we have
That's
to
what
vote
I
on
thought.
Okay, so you're
We
going again.
voted on that. It was.
No, 14 has not been voted on
Oh, I'm
yet.
sorry.
You're jumping the gun. So do I hear someone to please tell me a motion to accept Article 14 as written?
No, as,
Why not?
okay.
Is-
Oh, the
is the
amendment was
school
voted down, I'm
committee
sorry, you're right.
recommends, you mean?
Yes.
I move we recommend, we accept the school committee's recommendation.
Okay.
Second.
It's been seconded. Any further discussion on Article 14? All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? 42. Now, 15. Here we go. Add school undesignated fund is not sufficient. You have to put something in there to appropriate the 150,000 from the undesignated fund balance.
Well, first of all, let's waive the reading here.
Okay, a motion to waive the reading.
Second.
Any further discussion on this motion? All in favor? All opposed? Okay, go.
I will make a motion that we offer an amendment to this article and the article be amended as follows.
Just a second, time out.
Oh.
This has been approved, this has been approved by the school board and has been approved by the Board of Selectmen.
I am offering a recommendation to amend the article on the floor of the town meeting.
Does that mean then that you're going to not accept this article as written and approved by both of those bodies at the present time?
I'm making a motion on a recommendation. The Warrant and Finance Committee, in order to expedite this process and not force the school committee to come back and ask for that $150,000 of appropriation, appropriate it right here. I am suggesting that we recommend an adoption with an amendment as part of the Warrant and Finance. That we amend, that we offer an amendment to this and then accept it with the amendment, or and that's our recommendation.
I think that we should recommend to expend $5,449,117 for the fiscal year ending from this, and appropriate, for the fiscal year.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to add anything or
To expend?
subtract anything, then what we have to do is to defeat this particular article.
You're not
No, we can't defeat the
You
article.
can't defeat the article, all you can do is either
Well,
make a
but a
recommendation.
recommendation doesn't fit into this whole process because it's already been approved by the school board and the board of selectmen.
But we,
No,
we,
no, they've made their recommendation, and we're making ours. And I think that in our recommendation, we come up with the same total, but you can lower.
If you come up with the same number,
So you
Come
take
up with the
this
same
minus
number.
Same number.
150.
Yes, but take the
We-
150
And
from
then we say.
the
final
school
approval.
undesignated funds and
Right.
appropriate that for
And
use in this.
apply the 150,000.
all we're doing
Come up
is,
with 5599,177, no pennies.
all we're doing is we're
Right.
recommending that the article be amended on the floor of the town meeting, which is perfectly legal, to insert an appropriation for the $150,000 that is authorized.
Yeah,
for
you can
expenditures.
lower your, to expend $5,449,177
1,177.
and appropriate, school undesignated fund of 150,000,
Correct.
Giving us the total.
for the, yeah, for a total of 500.
Okay, but you're
5,000,500.
changing the article, ladies and
No, we
gentlemen.
can't change it.
I'm just telling you that you're gonna have to vote no on this and then put in the way you want us to phrase it, and that's perfectly fine.
No, because there's no money in the article itself.
We don't-
It's in the school committee's recommendation,
Right?
and in our recommendation, we can come up with the same total, but recommend that it come from, this is an explanation underneath, this isn't part of the article.
So what you're doing is you want, I'm just trying to get this, what you're trying to do is to have an alternative so that the voters on the 3rd of April can look at this and say, yes, this is the way it should have been done, and we'll go along with it. Is that what you're trying to
Right,
say?
right, that's exactly
Yeah,
right.
yeah, it's the same
Right.
total,
But
but,
the total will be the same?
yes,
Right.
yes.
You would take the 150.
All right, well,
out
let's
first
phrase it
and
then.
Put it back in.
So the figure of, up at the top in the dark print, 5,599,117,
Would be changed to,
5,000,000, no.
No.
It will
That
still be
is
that
the-
same
yes.
number,
yes.
Down
It-
here in the explanation.
but in the breakdown, you're going to have it differently,
Right.
right?
So you would take that 150, move it out.
I don't think you even have to.
No, you don't
just
have to. It's not
show
part of the
that
article.
It's part
Right.
of that. You're just,
Well, what they've
Clarify the
added is,
appropriation.
add the school undesignated funds, they've already said that.
in.
And Mr.
in
Gore's
there,
contention
but we're
is that it has not
saying
been
that-
appropriated.
Understand that, but when the voter, this is going to be on the ballot, I assume, this breakdown, is that correct?
That's
This is
right,
the
when you
block,
asked me, I
yes.
said yes.
Okay.
This explanation shall be there.
Okay.
And that is not part of the article, Bill. So in
Okay.
order for clarity, the documentation down here, the notes support the article as written, as drafted, and we are recommending that the article be slightly amended to appropriate the $150,000. That's
No,
all.
in our recommendation.
Right, in our recommendation,
We're
right.
breaking it
We
out.
are recommending that
Right.
the article be
That it
amended
be-
as,
Our-
to include, to
right.
add the $150,000 appropriation. That's all.
Recommend
So-
to amend the article,
No, we're gonna recommend
amending the article.
expending,
The
No appropriate.
explanation.
we're going to recommend to expend
Okay,
5,449,117
yes,
dollars.
177.
No, 117.
No.
177.
No, you only took 150,000 away.
Took 150.
It's $5,449,177.
No, are we on
17.
Article 15?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm recommending to expend
Yes, I'm listening.
5,449,177 $1,000.
117.
Yeah. $5,449,117. And appropriate from this, $150,000 from the school's undesignated fund.
Giving a total of.
And also
For a
expend that.
total of, and then for the fiscal year, everything else is the same.
I don't even think you need to change that final expenditure, the final expenditure. You can leave the same, but you do need to appropriate it. That's all you need to do. You need to appropriate.
Appropriate the $150,000. Yeah.
So I would say expend the number that is shown here, or I would say that we amend it to appropriate $150,000 from the undesignated fund
Right.
balance and authorize expenditure of that sum.
So repeat that again now.
We recommend that the town meeting appropriate the $150,000 from the undesignated fund balance.
Appropriate $150,000
From the undesignated
from the
fund balance.
undesignated
And the total expenditure of.
you can say to apply to?
Yep, to apply to. The total request by the school board for $5,599,177.
17.
Okay. 17?
Yeah, 117.
Why,
Is this
why
wrong
does,
here?
why does it say 177?
I don't know.
Oh, I see, so see down bottom, the total budget says 77, but the recommendation says 117.
Yeah.
Oh, my,
Which one is correct?
is there an
Oh,
error?
that's.
Oh, you're right, I see that
It's
now.
117,
It's supposed to be 117?
yes.
Okay.
Oh, so which number was off to get to the 177?
The bottom one.
No, which number was off to get to
It's just the total
177?
that was
It's just the total.
erroneous.
Oh, it was just a faulty addition?
Typo.
The machine was wrong?
Fat
Wait a
finger.
minute, that
That's
doesn't
why
add up.
Will and I were like, that was 77.
117, right?
Carry
Wait a
Wait a
second,
minute,
wait a second.
14,
More difficult to
0.
It follows the same with Article 14. If you look at Article 14 on the top, it's 5,99117.
Yes.
You've got-
I see that. Yep.
What's that again? I'm sorry, Ms. Oliver.
Kim is pointing out that the number is the same
Total
one as right
raise
here.
and subsidy.
This number right here. That number should be the same as this one right here.
So it should be 117.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
My apologies,
All right, so we're gonna appropriate $150,000 from the undesignated fund to apply to,
Yeah,
to Article 15.
For a total,
should these
and recommend,
numbers match?
To what?
Should the numbers
To-
match in Article 15 and the total?
Yes, that's why we said the total on the bottom should be 117.
117. That was a
All right,
typo.
well, let me go back to school and try to figure.
Okay, so we're gonna recommend the appropriation of $150,000
Let's first of all,
from the
you come up with 4 cents.
undesignated fund
Right.
to apply to Article 15,
the total, to
The
apply to
total-
the total expenditure.
Or carry 1.
to total expenditure
0.
It doesn't add up, Nancy.
of $5,559,117.
So I don't have, it says.
So what we're doing here now is having to say to expend, to appropriate $150,000 from the undesignated, to apply to the 4 million,
Right, right.
to 5 million, $449,117. Is that right? Recommend the appropriation of $150,000 from the undesignated fund to apply to $5,449,117 request, Article 15, to total expenditures of $5,599,117.
That's fine.
Is that do it? Okay, so that is gonna be the amendment, so I wanna hear a motion for the
No, no, no,
amendment.
no, no, that's a recommendation.
It's a
not an
recommendation.
Okay, a recommendation to put this in, okay?
I move to recommend what you just said.
Okay, I'll say it one more time, to appropriate $150,000 from the undesignated fund to apply to the $5,449,117 request, Article 15, to a total expenditure of $5,599,117.
That's fine.
That is the motion, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Is there any further discussion, pray tell?
Yes.
All in favor as worked out, signify by raising your hand. All against. You're not voting, Mr. Waterhouse?
You have totally confused me. I have a negative 150 included in Article 14
Yes.
from undesignated fund. Then I have a plus 150 on this side in Article 15.
The math is going backwards. First page.
However, you know, they offset each other, okay? I don't have a problem with.
Go ahead, Ms. Oliver, what were you gonna say?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but the first calculation is taking the total budget and subtracting out the revenues to come out with the two numbers you need for 13 and 14. And then when we look at the summary adds up what's being taxed, the additional tax, and the revenues to come up with a total. So it's just.
So as written is the way it was wanted, is that correct?
Yeah.
And so all we're saying then is that we're going to take it out in our recommendation to appropriate $150,000 from the undesignated fund to apply to the 5,449,117, Article 15, for a total expenditure of $5,599,117.
So 14 is raising your net amount without.
I would suggest that you disregard all that because it's not part of the article.
Yeah,
It doesn't
yeah.
matter.
All right.
Not part of it, yeah.
This is the final vote, guys.
Okay.
There's no other discussion. All in favor of the amendment that we have changed to? Any opposition?
I don't see that it's necessary.
Okay, that's fine.
You
So it
confuse the
passes.
issue, and the thing that confuses the issue is the money's already in the undesignated fund,
Yeah,
okay? Why do I need to appropriate it?
Because you can't move
Because-
money out of them.
basic town law says you have to have the vote of the people to take it from undesignated to any other reason, for any other function,
To apply it for a purpose.
to apply it for a purpose. You can't just take it. That is one of the foundations
Well,
of Maine direct democracy.
In the article, it says, and I'll skip all the first verbiage. This is in Article 15, it's a one-paragraph article, except for the recommendations, etc. You get down to the last line, it specifies Title 20A, section whatever, unexpended balances, tuition receipts, state subsidies, etc., in support of the school. You confuse me when you say, it's in the fund, but you can't use it. You just asked the town to approve expending the money from the unexpended funds. Now you're getting specific and saying it has to be appropriated.
I think because.
The wording is wrong on the article.
Well, I think that there are other unexpended balances,
True, I'm sure that there are other
and this
expended
is
balances.
pointing out that you're appropriating $150,000.
But everything that is unexpended
those.
goes back to the undesignated fund, unless it's in the reserves, which we're not talking about now.
Right, no, we've been there. Yes, but they will still have some unexpected balances, but you're appropriating $150,000 of those unexpended balances. That's the way
Mr.
I
Ross,
see
you
it.
had a question?
I'll defer to Jen's question first. if I
Ms.
could.
Rue?
Mine was just a statement to you, I just wanna make sure that we're clear. So this total budget number I am changing. to
This is
five-
number 15 you're
Yes.
talking about,
It's
yes.
gonna read 5599177704, so the math and everything matches up.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, exactly.
So that will be
The total is
6.4.
exactly the
I'm
same,
making that change, I just wanna make sure you knew that.
but it's applying to 5,449,117,
Yes.
the
Oh,
150.
You don't
Oh,
care
oh,
how
oh,
we got there.
Don't forget the
Okay.
4 cents.
Oh, 4.
I didn't wanna be, I didn't wanna make the change.
No, that's absolutely correct. Yes, sir.
My question is just to Mr. Gore. I get where you're going with, so how does this, my question is, how would this play out on the 3rd, the way you just suggested this recommendation? What will it physically look like when we get to this on the 3rd on the town floor? What will have to happen?
You'll have to adopt the recommendation of the Warrant and Finance Committee. That, when you adopt the recommendation of the Warrant and Finance Committee, you amend the article to appropriate it, okay? And that's all it would be. Instead of reading, we move the recommendation, and Judy, I assume you're going to do this probably, instead of moving in that article, the school committee's recommendation, you'd simply move the recommendation of Warrant and Finance Committee. Warrant and Finance Committee recommends the adoption of the article basically as written, except it amends it to add in the appropriation, the $150,000 appropriation.
Or I could, when I'm making the motion, recommend the school committee's recommendation, given the fact that in the explanation, it says funds appropriated.
Yes.
Down at the, it's there, it says they're appropriated, and it lists what funds are appropriated, so I don't see why we have to appropriate it again.
It's a matter of opinion, I think for town floor, I think they do the
It
same thing,
says
honestly.
14, appropriate additional funds, and it.
It just
says-
delineates
says
it,
appropriate.
a little bit more. I would agree with
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
And that is a basic fundamental thing in main government.
Okay.
You can't take it out of an undesignated fund without somebody's proving it as far as the voters are concerned. So I don't think that's unreasonable, truly I don't. All right, so
Okay.
we have finished voting on this. Is there
Yes.
anything else that we have to do now?
16 through 18.
Yes,
Okay, let's go for it, guys.
I hope.
yes, the sooner the better.
All right, that was 5-1, that last vote. Ms. Rue, did you get that?
Yes, sir.
All right. The next one is number 16. Shall the school committee be authorized to expend such other sums as may be received from federal or state grants or programs or other sources during the fiscal year for school purposes, provided that such grants, programs, and other sources do not require the expenditure of other funds not previously appropriated? And the school committee voted 5-0 and recommended that. And now Warrant and Finance, please.
Move
Recommend
we
support.
accept the school committee's recommendation.
It's been
Second.
moved and seconded. Any further discussion on this? All in favor, raise your hand. 6-0. All right, number 17, to see if the town of Acton will appropriate the receipt of certain federal and state grants and carry any previous balances for the following special revenue accounts. Title 1A, Small Rural School, Title 4, Title 2A, Local Entitlement Preschool Proficiency-Based Learning. The school committee recommended to appropriate receipt of federal and state grant funds as per Article 17, 5-0. Warrant and Finance?
Move to accept the school committee's recommendation.
There's a motion, is there a second to that?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on this particular article? Yes, Mr. Gore?
I have one question. Do we understand this list to be a part of the article, or is that descriptive?
These are descriptive, these are our current
Right.
state and federal grants that we have right now. There could be some that we get during the year that we are.
It's not listed here, so,
Listed, but
okay.
These are the ones we currently have.
I don't have a problem with that, and and that's fine. I'm going to suggest for the future, you make clear what is and what is not a part of the article in preparation of the warrant, because it's very, very difficult to work with when that's not clear, and it wasn't clear to me the other night, and that's why I raised the question about in Article 14 as to whether those numbers were part of the article or not. I understand your purpose.
All right.
I think we need to know what we're talking about.
Any further questions or discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, 6-0. Article 18, to see if the town of Acton will vote to appropriate the following revenues, balances carried, and fund transfers to fund the food service budget in addition to amounts raised by taxation for food services in the school operating budget. The school nutrition revenues, $80,000. The school committee recommends to appropriate revenues to fund the nutrition budget as per Article 18, and they voted 5-0. Any further?
Move to accept the school committee's
The
recommendation.
motion to approve the school committee's recommendation has been seconded. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed. Article 19, to see what sum the town of Acton will vote to transfer funds from unexpended funds to the designated capital improvement reserve account and to expend funds from that reserve account. This account is used for the purposes of paving the parking lots and sidewalks. School committee recommends the transfer of $15,000 from school undesignated funds to the school designated capital improvement reserve account, and that vote was 5-0.
For clarity, I recommend this account to be used, right? Because you're not limiting this? Or maybe that's redundant.
I wonder, there are two capital reserve accounts.
Before we discuss it, do we have a motion to accept it?
Move we accept the warrant. and finance.
All right, is there a second to that motion?
There hasn't been any warrant finance recommendation
I
as of
just
yet.
made-
That's correct.
I
All I
just
need is a second to the motion,
move.
otherwise it's removed.
Move that we accept the school committee's recommendation.
Thank
All
you.
right,
Second.
now discussion, go for it. Any problems? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have no idea why we would want to be moving money out of the undesignated fund balance into an account that we don't agree abides by any set of rules or regulations. I think this can, I don't have a problem with the appropriation, but I think it can be a town meeting account, and it can come back next year for the town meeting to approve or not. But to take $15,000 from an account that we have just expressed we don't believe exists, and deposit it in an account which we don't think is legitimate, it seems a contradiction to me. So
You're
I'm going to vote-
inclusive-
I'm going to vote in opposition to this.
You're inclusive a lot as far as including it. We,
I'm sorry. I'm expressing my opinion.
thank you, sir.
Did you have an opinion you wanted to
We-
give us?
Do I have an opinion?
Yes, sir.
Basically, we're talking about moving money from the school's undesignated fund
Yes.
to a reserve account.
I hate to use the word, but
I-
yes.
I dearly wish that there were some other nomenclature that everybody could agree upon. However, I will specify reserve because I'm a non-person. You get,
Don't be so humble.
we're moving money from schools undesignated fund to a fund for the purpose of repaving the parking lot and sidewalk, to build the fund balance, okay? My understanding of this fund is to build a fund balance so that they can say, okay, we're gonna repave the parking lot and fix the sidewalks as necessary, and we have a bid of umpty squat amount of money, and guess what, folks? We've got that money in this fund. Now, a lot of people don't agree with nesting money. They would prefer to, let's go to the bank and get some money. Be that as it may, I support the school's idea as far as trying to come up with a fund, be that it may, to try to redo what may be necessary and probably is necessary. Pavement does not last forever. Potholes exist. Sidewalks crumble. So I'm in support of the.
I have a question, however, to this group, and then maybe perhaps the school board can help us. This present fund for improvement, capital improvement, is already a fund in place?
Yes.
Yes.
And it is a, I hate to say this, is it statutory? Is it going on
No,
from
it's
year
not
to year?
statutory.
It's not statutory.
Non-lapsing.
A non-lapsing.
Non-lapsing.
You know what that means, do
That's what was in our opinion, was non-lapsing, considered a non-lapsing.
Okay, but we really don't have a good nomenclature for it. We won't go into that thing again. Right now, we would consider it to be one that would last for the duration of the fiscal year. Go ahead, Tom.
I would also suggest, as I did the other day, that this is not a capital improvement, I don't believe, this is a capital maintenance item. And so it's inappropriate to put it in an account which we don't believe exists in any case.
Well,
But we know that it
I
does,
think Ms.
Tom.
Shane, if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Shane gave a reading at that meeting. And the fact is that they are going to resurface some of the surfaced area, but they're also going to actually surface areas that are dirt. No?
No, they're going to
We're gonna tear up-
resurface
we're
everything.
gonna tear up what we have and bring it down to dirt and then.
So total reapplication of the surface,
Of the existing surface.
of the existing surface. Okay, well, again, it's going to add X number of years of further usage.
Life, but it's still maintenance item.
It's still maintenance.
But according to the definition that I looked up for you last week, if you'll remember,
Yes.
capital improvement can be new construction, can be remodeling, can be anything that's going to add to the length of time usage of the facility. So this would definitely be something that would extend the length of time of the parking lot to add that on. So those were all included in that definition. It didn't just say new construction.
Who was the source of that definition? Do you recall?
I don't recall.
I'm just wondering if we looked up something at the state level, that they had their own dictionary versus Merriam-Webster. and everybody else that come up with.
How many dictionaries?
Yeah, there actually
Judy
is a
read that
law
out
dictionary
into
for
us.
lawyers
She
to
did, but I
use.
didn't know what the source was.
Oh, I see. I think she's, yeah. so
I think,
definition.
may I?
Yes.
I think we have covered this issue already. If you go back to my original opening remarks in item 3, where I distinguished between capital improvement and capital maintenance, or capital improvement and capital maintenance items, and described how a maintenance item could become, in part at least, a capital
Right.
improvement.
Right?
Okay?
And that could be stretched out.
You know, folks,
Your water, I don't have a problem for the project. I still
don't
have,
either.
I still have a problem, however, in taking undesignated funds and putting them into, you better get the thing done during this fiscal year is what I'm going to say to
We'd
you.
have to have 50 then, yeah.
Huh?
No, they don't have to do that. All they have to do is put it in, just carry it as an undesignated fund, and when you're ready for it, come back and get it. Or I understand your problem, Ken, on that.
Can't do that.
Yeah.
Well, you can, it just lowers the other amount that you have, and get it
It'll take us
renewed.
away from what our policy is that's been set up by
Well,
the accounting firm.
Other questions of the committee members?
I
Please.
general question.
Go
Going
ahead.
back to this legal opinion from Drummond and Woodson, and then the town uses Burke and Clegg. Is there a reason why all of us, both sides, both entities can't use the same law firm?
Generally, I mean, they specialize in different areas. Burke and Clegg is more of a municipal general firm, whereas Drummond and Woodson, they only study school law.
That's part of the answer. There's another part of the answer.
Okay.
You have a school committee that is one body, legal body. They act as a unit. And you have a board of selectmen who operate as a unit, as a board. The possibility exists that there could be a conflict between the two, in which case you need those two separate attorneys. And don't forget, those attorneys are advocates for those boards. They are not giving you definition of law. But it's always a good idea, each board should have its own attorney and look at everything from its own point of view. I may have misspoken. That's why I wrote things down.
That was a bit overstretched.
Okay. No, it's true, but.
All right, yes, Ms. Shane.
Just for the record, Drummond and Woodson, when you say the law, they have written school laws. They do workshops for school committees and conferences explaining all the school laws to us. They are the school law experts. Almost, if you went around, you'd find almost every system around here uses Drummond and Woodson because they are the experts in school law. They have written books on school law, which I have one of, for school committee members to kind of clarify some of these things. So it's, to say that they're advocates, they are advocates, I suppose, in a way, if you go to
That's what they're supposed to be.
yes, but in court, you know.
But they're still giving a legal
in a
opinion, I'm
court,
sorry.
but the legal opinion that they give is based on their expertise on school law. It isn't.
I understand that. I understand. As I said, I don't have any problems with the money. I just have a problem with the fact that it's going into a fund that is nebulous as far as we're concerned. And as I
I
said,
agree that moving forward, these things should be clarified, but it's done. I think we understand, I think the town
I
understands.
hope the town
its
will
purpose.
understand a little
I
bit
hope that
better.
in the future.
I would like to have the nomenclature
Clarify.
the same, Board of Selectmen, school board, everybody ought to be doing the same thing as far as the funds are
Would
concerned.
make
And
these
just-
meetings much shorter.
I'm sorry, just in closing, I mean, there have been numerous times that Burke and Clegg or Parkinson, our prior attorney, have written opinions to the Board of Selectmen that aren't in favor of what, aren't in favor of what they asked. And I'm sure you and Nancy can both attest to that. So they do not give opinions based on, I mean, we don't call them and say, this is how we want it to turn out. We call them and give them the facts and they.
No, I hope I wasn't even implying
Well,
that.
that's exactly what he implied. And that's why he apologized, because he knew that's what he implied. I just want to make sure it's clear that that's not the intent of these attorneys at all.
That is correct.
Right.
We give them facts, they decide.
All right, what does the committee want to do on this one?
I want to vote and go home.
All right, I second that motion. And make a martini or something.
So-
Okay. Do I hear a motion for something,
There's a
please?
motion on the table.
Yeah,
What was the
There's a
motion
motion on
made?
the table.
The
I
motion is to accept,
was to accept the school committee's recommendation.
and it was
Second.
seconded.
And you
Any-
seconded it
Thank you.
already.
Any further discussion?
No, call the vote.
All in favor of Article 19, raise your hand. All against. The purist is there, and I don't just, listen,
That's my job.
no,
I'll make a motion that we adjourn and note here that this meeting has taken just about as much time as Wednesday night's meeting took.
Yep.
I figured,
Why is that?
no, I do, I know how long. We
Okay,
started at
there's
5, I
a
got home
motion
at
to
7:30.
adjourn, is there a second? All in favor? So be it, thank you all for coming.